Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website is teamchicago.tv, teamchicago.tv. We're at Grattan Raceway. This is the 23rd annual Grattan Raceway Team Chicago Road Race School. Got some great students. In the next 10 or 12 minutes, I'm going to show you some of the action, some of the classroom, walking the track, and some of the action on the track at beautiful Grattan Raceway. And remember my website, teamchicago.tv. We are at Grattan Raceway. It is April 2nd, 2016. We're with Phil Young and the Team Bear Kawasaki. He's leading his students up the hill and onto the front straightaway at Grattan Raceway. We have wet conditions. We have snow in the air. If you're on YouTube, you got to see the clip from the school for 2016, or go to YouTube, Dan Schmitt, Grattan Raceway Team Chicago School 2016. But as we see Phil going down the front straightaway with a few of his students, we did have wet conditions. The weather changed. When we did the track walk, it was much nicer, but then the cold weather come rolling in with a little bit of snow in the air. And it reminds me of the footage going back to 1993. The first school at Grattan Raceway had snowed on the 1st of April with the big storm. They plowed the track, and on April 4th, Sunday, we had the first Grattan Raceway Team Chicago School. In this clip, we are going to listen to Bruce Blake. He is going to tell us about sag. He's going to tell us about preload. He's going to tell us about how to set up the suspension on your motorcycle. So for the next 18 minutes, we're going to listen to Bruce Blake tell us about setting up modern suspensions.
Here is a tidbit. On a bike, street bike, whenever you make adjustments, the first adjustment that you make, no matter whether it's been touched or not, you have no idea, I'm on the bike, things don't want, I want to find out what's going on. And your goal is to place the knobs like they're going out of style. Screw them all the way in, screw them all the way out. But the first thing that you do is you make adjustments only one step at a time. We're doing the front, the forks, or the rear shock. And the first adjustment is only on the rebound. And our tension, by the way, I should mention that because some things will have a T on them. Rebound. The thing to make sure is that you always back it off or speed it up, soften it, so it comes out fast. Never make it slower when you make an adjustment to start with. If you slow it down, it won't be out fast enough. You're going through a corner, the front wheel's off the ground, it comes back down, the rear bounces up, the rear suspension doesn't come out fast enough, it hits the ground, and that's called a high side. Oh, they hurt. They really hurt. There's nothing like flying through the air and saying, oh, this is going to hurt. And it's like, yeah. And hopefully you don't get to get that fun ride in the back of the ambulance. Always make it so it comes out faster. All right? Same thing with the front. If you're going to play this in front, you reduce the amount of tension. In other words, you speed up the front end so it comes out faster. That's the first adjustment. All right. Second tidbit about adjustments, make them 2 clicks or a quarter turn at a time. Don't go a half a turn or 4 or 5 clicks. 2 clicks or a quarter turn at a time. Here is the next thing to do on adjustments. After you back them out, you're not sure where they're at. So you always take the unit. I haven't got a good enough screwdriver. You always take the unit and you screw it in. They always go in clockwise. These are just a small tapered needle. Some of them unfortunately aren't tapered, you know, they're kind of like blunt, but there's a hole, an orifice that the oil passes through, and this tapered needle goes in and out of that orifice, reducing the oil flow, makes it slower or stiffer or harder. Pulling the needle out makes it move faster, more consistent in that flow. So, how do you get that? You always turn it in clockwise till it stops. It's a screw, it's not a bolt. You just turn it in with your fingers till it stops. And then you count back out the turns. If it's 2 turns in and you want to have it speeded up, you screw it in 2 turns, then you turn it out to 2 1/4 turns. Again, unless you know what you're dealing with and you're just into it, back the rebound out so it comes out faster. So it has a better, more time to get on the pavement. In other words, it comes out quicker, so it'll be closer contact. Then you back off the compression so that it eats up more of the stroke. If the compression is too stiff, you may only be taking out of that 5-inch or 5.5-inch stroke, you may be only using 4 inches of the whole thing. And you may never even get down to the bump stops in the forks, which are a cavity inside where the pieces go together and it gives you that rubbery bottoming effect. You may not even get close to those because it's too stiff. Right? So chatter is what this thing is jumping through the pavement. All right, you'll hear that a lot. That's the first thing you want to do is you want to start backing things up. Remember, if you get anything that feels funny, it's generally is the front end or rear end is not going up and down fast enough. They think, oh man, this thing is just pogoing in the corner and it's pounding my butt in the air and it's jumping all over the place. I got something wrong with the compression. Well, you probably do, but chances are you need to back the rebound off. And then on the next lap, you may have to back the compression off because you're not using enough of that stroke in that unit. Had a guy, when was New Orleans? 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Okay. Had a guy down there. I'm downtown. It's raining here. They're at the racetrack. It's not raining. They're racing and I get the guy on the phone. I'm sitting there. For some reason, I'm in this Irish bar, and I'm and I get this phone, and it's like, yeah, hi, Greg. This thing's kicking the crap out of me. Blah blah blah. He rides a Harley Davidson XR 1200, right? And it's just beating the shit out of them, right? And they didn't have practice on Sunday. And it's like, you know, it's like, boom, and he got 2 back-to-backs. He said, oh, I said, oh, yeah. I said, listen, I know your rebound is, your compression is almost wide open. I said, so let's do 3 clicks on the rebound and get this thing to catch up. And his first race, he got a 7th, and the second race, he got a 3rd, and then a 2nd and a 3rd. And the reason was, this thing was just not catching up. And it was like, do this! That's really how simplistic it is. All right. Of course, he had a real hard time with that lead sled, 570-pound XR 1200, competing against these 2 Dukes. You know, are you kidding me? You know, he's got 175 pounds more than they do. You know, it's like, so. Anyway, but you know, that's what goes on. So that's critical to go play with it. This last thing I'll say on this one, these knobs to play with, these little adjusters, and all we're doing is a low speed. We're not talking about changing valve shims or anything like that. Play with them. Take them. Screw them all. Let's say you start with the front end. We turn these adjusters all the way in, and then we turn them all the way out. At least 16, maybe 20 clicks out, all right? Like 4 turns. Same thing with the compression. There's nothing. Be careful. Take a lap on the track. Come back in, stop, screw them all the way off, both of them, and then go out again. Carefully on 1 lap. See what the differences are. Then reset them where you're at. Do the same thing with the rear. Always start backing them wide open so there's no low speed control, and then screw them all the way closed and try it. So you know what the extremes that you can touch, all right? And this is really, the low speed has nothing to deal with how fast you're moving, all right? It all has to do with how fast the stroke of the fork or the shock is going up and down. In fact, it all goes through these little orifices that are controlled by that until they reach a certain speed and pressure builds up, and then the valve shims will open up on the inside to allow the oil to go through. And that's what you pay all the big money to the guy for, is to change those little shims on the inside. Woo! Yeah. Give you some real basic information on how to select spring rates and how to make minor adjustments in the low speed dampening on your suspension if you have that. And then we'll talk about anything else beyond that. I'll talk a little bit about how to make these adjustments and why. And give you a little explanation of what happens. So the bottom line here to start with is that everybody's got a bike here, something like this. Couple of forks on the front, they go up and down. You got a swing arm, and this is a single shock unit in the rear. These are adjustable on both ends. We have rebound and compression dampening in the front. We have rebound and compression dampening on the rear dampener in the rear. Very, very basic. Now, the dampening effects, that's where all the money is. That's where you go to Johnny Speed Tuner, and you whip out your wallet or your credit card has holes in it when he's done, and he takes $1,000 from you to redo all your suspension. Okay. But you're not sure what you bought, right? Okay. But we're going to take some of that away from Johnny Speed Tuner, because you have to know what you're doing with before you take it to him. Johnny doesn't screw with the other stuff. Johnny is going to adjust the dampening effect. That's what you pay for. In the springs, whether pneumatic or mechanical, those are little metal parts on the inside and the outside, that absorbs energy and releases energy in the springs. The dampening, what you pay Johnny Fastboy for, is the rate at which the energy absorbs into that spring and the rate at which it is expended or released. All right? Everybody got that piece? So without the oil in them, it goes boingy, boingy, boingy. And Johnny, you give Johnny the $1,000 and it's supposed to go up and down really smooth, okay? Just a tidbit. When Johnny gets done, you should be able to go like this, push down on that thing, and you should not be able to get your hand off the seat. It should follow your hand. You're not that fast. You should go down, and you can't get your hand off the seat until it stops. Same thing with the front. You should be able to push that thing down and can't get the hands off the handlebars, your clip-ons, before it tops out. If you can get your hands off, rebounds too slow. If you can get your hand off, rebounds too slow. Too slow a rebound, there's a phenomenon that occurs called high siding. I'm sure everybody's seen pictures of that. It's always in John Eller's book, you know. So, if the rebound's too slow, the tire leaves the pavement, bites again, and you take a header. So now, the first thing we want to do is, if there's no oil in anything, we want to get the motorcycle, this piece of equipment, to carry the load. If it can't carry the load, if it's oversprung, it won't compress, it's worthless. If it's undersprung, it bottoms out and it's worthless. You want the springs to carry the load. The load is the motorcycle, the fuel, your petite little butt that is sitting on the seat and the weight on the foot pegs. That's the load it needs to carry. You have to locate and find what that load is supposed to be. Johnny Fastboy Tuner should take the measurements, should ask you all sorts of things like, are the inside of the grips worn out? Do you have calluses on the top of your hands? Is your little fingers got spots on them from riding? What's the inside of your thighs on your leathers look like? Yes, you know, is the butt worn out? What's the bottom of your boot look like? The outside of your boots ground off? Is the heel ground off? You know, all these things. Little Fastboy Tuner should be asking you all these personal questions and what you're doing. Are you bouncing your head on the tank a lot? Is my petite little tummy wearing the paint off? We need to know that. Are you grinding this stuff off through this area of the fairing? If he's not asking you those questions, Johnny's kind of going to the shelf and saying, oh, here's box A. This is what you need. If Johnny's asking the questions, Johnny gets box A, dumps it on the counter, sorts this out, gets parts from box C, box D, box F, and says, now this is what you want. If Johnny's not doing the other thing, think twice about buying Johnny's, all right? He's got to ask you some nasty questions, you know. Not just, how heavy is that wallet of yours that I need to light? Now here's areas where you have to pick out what's going on, and this is the portion that you need to do before you even go talk to John. You take your bike. There are 3 dimensions that need to be taken, and those 3 dimensions are called unladen, static sag, and race sag, or rider sag. But we'll call it race sag, because after all, we are a race sag. Those are fairly significant and pretty easy to understand. Unladen means, like if I take this bike and I lift it up, and the suspension hangs out away from the ground, all shaken out. Then I take the measurement. We'll do the front to start with. Very simplistic. You take the front, roll it this way. And we have this unit here. We have a place to measure from the bottom of the fork leg to the axle. That's a nice one. This here, by the way, you'll see it comes up some. That measurement we take at this point would be called unladen, stretched out completely. And that unladen dimension would be like from here to a spot on the fork leg, which we say is like 9 inches right now. You then take that, clamp the brake, push it down, and let it come up. We then take that exact same dimension from that location, and it'll have amount of sag to it. That is the first static sag. The second static sag, since there's frictional resistance in the bushings and the seals, clamp this, front brake again, lift up, and let it sag down. Take that second static sag measurement. Big mathematics. Add them together and divide them by 2. Cut that in half. That'll give you the average of what it is.
Okay. So you have resistance.
The dimension that we want to take on that is that, first of all, this one here has preload adjusters. I don't know if the Triumph has the preload adjusters or not. Okay.
54, 1954 Triumph, they don't have it.
Well, I put a few on those. Take this here, unscrew it completely out. The preload adjuster changes where the spring begins to work. Doesn't change the spring rate. But you back them all the way out, because that gives you the adjustment that you want on the track, not sitting in the bar. So we take that measurement. That measurement in the front should be someplace between 15 and 25 millimeters worth of static sag. If it's there, that means the spring rate is right for the bike. Then you take your petite little body, put on your 15 to 25 pounds of leather. It depends on your helmet, any place between 1.5 pounds to 5 pounds. That doesn't include the 25 pounds of lead that's inside of it. And then you put that whole thing on the bike, all right? You get on the bike. Best way is you always have to have a friend. Either that or you got really, really long arms. You get in the racing position. Remember, it's the racing position. Put your feet on the pegs where it's supposed to be. Put your rear where it needs to be. The front, lean over, grab a hold of the front, wiggle that thing around until it settles down. This is now sitting completely on the ground. When it settles down, you kind of reach over there and you hold your finger there, and then your friend will take that same measurement. That same measurement then will give you race sag. Race sag should be about 1/3 of the total stroke of those forks. On something like this, we're dealing with 35 millimeters, something like that. That's where it should be. If it's like 45 millimeters, we then know that you're at 45 millimeters, we're about a full 0.1 kilogram per millimeter off. So if we've got 0.90 kilograms per millimeter springs, we know that we got to get a 1.0 to bring it up where it needs to be, to carry the load. That's how it works. That's what you work on.
Thank you, Bruce. And as I follow Eric Koenigsberg at Grattan Raceway, for more information on Michigan engineering, give Bruce a call at 616-891-9075. The website is www.mei-inc.com. Michigan Engineering, get a hold of Bruce. For information on Grattan Raceway, their phone number is 616-691-7221. Their website is GrattanRacewayPark.com, GrattanRacewayPark.com. Don't forget TeamChicago.tv, WalkWithDan.com. I hope you learned something from the 2016 school at Grattan Raceway.